It was on a misty morning in late October of 1894, when the streets of London still carried the weary breath of the previous night's rain, that I first heard mention of Churchstone Bridge. Holmes and I had been sharing a quiet breakfast at Baker Street, the kind in which the clinking of utensils echoed louder than our conversation. Mouse. I had thought to enjoy a rare moment of calm, yet as always, fate alongside my friend Sherlock Holmes had different intentions.
Watson, your silence is deafening. One might almost suppose you were constructing complicated medical theories rather than eating that rather unfortunate looking scone.
My dear Holmes. Oh, I was simply contemplating whether the quiet of this morning was a blessing or an omen.
When one has lived with me long enough, Watson, one learns that omens are merely events awaiting explanation. And explanations, naturally, await my attention.
Holmes, must every calm breakfast be ruined by a deduction?
Not ruined, Watson. Improved. Elevation of the mind improves the digestion.
I was on the verge of offering a rebuttal when the familiar sound of hurried footsteps echoed upon tea. He stares. Mrs. Hudson's polite knock was replaced by the shuffling of a woman who pushed into our sitting room with a mixture of desperation and propriety. Her gloved hands trembled as she removed her veil, revealing a face pale with concern.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Watson, I beg your pardon for the intrusion, but I have been told that no one else can help me.
You have come to the correct address, miss.
Grayford, Lady Eleanor Grayford of Grayford Manor, near Churchstone Village.
The name struck a faint chord in my memory, though I could not recall the details. Holmes, however, offered the slightest arch of an eyebrow, signaling recognition, yet he spoke nothing of it.
Please take a seat, Lady Grayford. The tremor in your left hand tells me you have travelled here directly and without pause. The mud at the hem of your gown is of a rural soil, probably Midlands, and your boots show traces of river silt. You have crossed a stone bridge recently.
Mr. Holmes, how could you possibly?
Elementary, madam. The question is not how, but why. What has occurred at Churchstone Bridge?
A disappearance, sir. My younger brother Thomas. He vanished 2 nights ago while walking near the old Churchstone Bridge, the one the villagers claim is cursed. He left the manor after supper, telling me he needed air and time to think, and never returned.
Surely the authorities have begun a proper investigation?
They searched the riverbank and examined the bridge, but found nothing. No footprints. What? No signs of a struggle. They insist he likely fell into the river, but Thomas was never careless. No! And there have been others.
Others?
Yes, sir. 4 disappearances in the last 2 months, always near the same bridge, always at night.
4? My word, that is a serious matter indeed.
The local constabulary must be incompetent not to have drawn a connection sooner.
They insist it is coincidence or superstition, but I know my brother. Something is terribly wrong.
Her distress was genuine. I could see it plainly. Even Holmes, who often displayed more interest in problems than people, leaned forward with a degree of solemnity typically reserved for the gravest of matters.
Describe the most recent night in detail. Everything you recall, no matter how trivial.
The evening began pleasantly enough. Thomas had been troubled lately, though he refused to confide in me. He spent long hours away from the manor, often walking in the direction of the bridge. When he stepped out after supper, he seemed preoccupied, as though wrestling with a decision.
And you have no idea what that decision might have entailed?
None, Mr. Holmes. When he did not return, I sent 2 of our groundsmen to look for him, but the night was thick with fog. By morning, the river patrol found no sign of him. No footprints, no dropped items, nothing.
Holmes rose from his chair and paced before the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back. I knew that stance well. It was the posture of a mind weaving threads into patterns invisible to ordinary men.
Lady Grayford, a question. What of the villagers' tales regarding this supposed curse?
They claim the bridge is haunted by a monk who was executed centuries ago for treason. And now, hurrah! Some say he returns to steal away wandering souls. It is foolishness, of course, but even foolishness can be dangerous when believed strongly enough.
Indeed, superstition often hides motive, just as shadow hides shape. Watson, prepare your coat. We leave on the morning train.
Holmes, you intend to take the case at once?
A disappearance near a remote bridge accompanied by a rash of similar events, all dismissed by local authorities under the veil of folklore. The situation demands attention, and I, Watson, demand mystery.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I feared you might refuse. This weighs heavily on my family.
Fear not. We shall unravel this. The truth is never as obscure as it wishes to appear.
And with that, Lady Grayford departed, leaving behind an atmosphere heavy with intrigue. Holmes remained silent for several minutes, watching the window as though the very fog might contain fragments of the case. Holmes, I must ask, have you heard of Churchstone Bridge before?
Briefly, Watson, a mention in a newspaper some months ago regarding one of the earlier disappearances. I recalled it instantly when Lady Grayford walked in. It seemed too peculiar an incident to be the work of mere chance.
And yet, you said nothing.
Why spoil the flourish of deduction? Besides, her testimony confirms the suspicion
Which is,
that her brother's disappearance is not an isolated event, but part of a larger scheme, one hidden bee, superstition and rural ignorance. The clues are subtle, Watson, but they are there.
Holmes fetched his violin then, not to play, but to run his fingers along the strings, as one might along the keys of a locked door. His thoughts often required such tactile contemplation.
Observe, Watson, 4 disappearances all near the same location, no signs of struggle, no bodies recovered, no evidence of a fall into the river. What conclusion suggests itself?
That someone or something is deliberately taking people?
Precisely. But why near that bridge? Why only at night? And why leave no trace? There is artifice in the pattern. When we reach Churchstone, the landscape will tell us the rest.
And the villagers' tales of the ghostly monk?
Nonsense, of course, but useful nonsense. When a community believes in myths, criminals exploit them. Fear is the oldest disguise in human history. But
I could not help a shiver at his words. Though I blamed the draft in our sitting room, I had seen enough strange occurrences beside Holmes to know that the line between superstition and crime often blurred, and the space between them was where danger thrived. The morning brought a chill that seemed intent upon burrowing beneath one's coat. Holmes strode briskly toward the platform, his traveling cloak billowing behind him as though eager to arrive before he did. I followed with our luggage, feeling, as I often did, that Holmes pulled me toward adventure like a comet's tail drawn behind a star.
Watson, do hurry. The 8 pointing to Churchstone waits for no man, and certainly not for medical hesitation. Oh,
Holmes, I am moving as briskly as possible under the circumstances.
your definition of brisk continues to perplex me.
We boarded the train just as the whistle shrieked. The countryside soon swallowed our view, the city fading behind us like a chapter concluding itself. Holmes sat rigid, fingers steepled, eyes closed, yet I knew his mind was racing with theories. Holmes, do you suspect foul play definitively?
I suspect everything until proven otherwise, Watson. A disappearance without evidence is more suspicious than one with it. Evidence speaks, absence whispers.
And what of this Thomas Grayford? Are you a young man troubled, wandering alone at night? Could he have run away of his own accord?
Possible, but improbable. Lady Grayford described his temperament as troubled, not reckless. The riverbank held no tracks. A man who vanishes without disturbing the ground beneath him does not run away. He is removed.
Removed? By whom?
That, Watson, is what we intend to discover.
Churchstone was a quaint rural settlement, its cottages clustered against rolling moors and shadowed woods. Yet, even from our first steps onto the village lane, I felt a certain unease, an air that clung to the townsfolk like damp wool. Their eyes lingered upon us longer than courtesy required.
Superstition has permeated this place like fog in lowland valleys. Observe how they stare, fear mixed with curiosity.
A man approached us slowly, his posture stooped, his expression wary.
Begging your pardon, gentlemen, you're strangers here. Hope you ain't here for the bridge at night.
On the contrary, sir, we are here precisely for the bridge.
Then may the Lord guide your steps. Folks who wander there after dusk, well, they don't always return.
Holmes exchanged a look with me, one that spoke of equal parts intrigue and consummation.
Tell me, Mr. Harrow, what exactly do the villagers believe happens at the bridge?
They say the old monk haunts it, that he takes the souls of the troubled, the ones wandering late. But I reckon it's just the dark, sir. The dark plays tricks.
Darkness is merely absence of light, never the presence of danger. Yet your tone suggests you believe otherwise.
Aye, I've seen shadows moving under that bridge, sir. Not natural shadows, shadows with purpose.
Holmes's eyes gleamed with a spark of exhilaration. I recognized all too well.
Excellent. Then our investigation begins at dusk.
Church bell of Churchstone Village chimed a somber afternoon toll as Holmes and I made our way over Grayford Manor. Now, the landscape was a mixture of melancholy beauty, rolling moors, thin spirals of chimney smoke, and distant woodlands whose dark treetops swayed like brooding sentries. Holmes walked at a pace that seemed propelled by the very mystery we sought to unravel, his sharp eyes cataloguing every mound of earth, every side path, and every subtle shift in the villagers' expressions as we passed.
Observe the tilt of that cottage roof, Watson. The repairs are recent, likely done by someone without professional skill. This village suffers from dwindling labor and excess anxiety. Both conditions tend to produce fear-fed stories.
Holmes, must every loose shingle contribute to your theory?
Every detail contributes to every theory. The world speaks, Watson. Most men merely lack the ear to hear it.
Before I could craft the witty retort, the gates of Grayford Manor came into view, tall wrought iron, adorned with vines and crests, and flanked by hedges clipped with disciplined precision. A somber grandeur emanated from the manor beyond, a structure of grey stone walls, towering windows, and an almost monastic stillness of its own.
A house built not merely for residence, but to preserve legacy. The Grayfords are old blood. With old blood come old secrets.
Lady Eleanor waited for us just outside the entrance hall. Her hands were clasped at her waist. Though her shoulders betrayed tension, she tried silently to conceal.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, you arrived sooner than I expected. Thank you. Thank you.
Time is the single luxury that missing persons rarely afford us, Lady Grayford. We must begin immediately. May we speak with those who last saw your brother?
Of course. I have gathered the staff who were awake that night, but there is something else you ought to see first. Thomas's study. Wait!
She led us through a long corridor lined with ancestral portraits. Generations of Grayfords stared down at us, stern men in military coats, women in dark gowns, all sharing the same sharp cheekbones and hollowed expressions. I could not help but imagine their painted eyes watching our every step.
Portraits rarely lie in what they choose to emphasize. And Biam! Note the recurring crest behind each figure, an archway over moving water. The family motif appears tied to the bridge.
Quite so. It represents the founding of Churchstone itself. The first Grayfords built the bridge centuries ago.
Curious symbolism. Bridges unite, but they also divide. Continue, if you please.
Here we are.
The room bore the scent of old parchment, candle soot, and a faint undercurrent of lavender, likely from the sachet hanging by the window. Books cluttered the desk, some open to pages filled with sketches of the countryside, others marked with scraps of notes. Holmes approached the desk with reverent curiosity.
Watson, take note. The arrangement of objects suggests a restless mind. Books of folklore, local history, architectural diagrams. This young man was researching something important.
Perhaps the so-called curse?
Perhaps, or he sought to uncover what others feared to confront.
He grew fixated on the bridge these past months. He sketched it constantly. Look! Over here!
He gestured to a series of charcoal drawings pinned upon the wall. They depicted Churchstone Bridge in varying states of atmosphere, moonlit, fog-covered, shadow-burdened. But it was one drawing that seized my attention, a dark silhouette beneath the arch of the bridge, standing among rippling water. Holmes, look at this one.
Yes, the figure is too distinctly rendered to be imagination. Coolmus saw someone or something under that bridge.
I asked him about it once. He said he was not sure if it was real or a trick of the mist.
A trick of the mist does not leave impressions strong enough for repeated sketches.
Holmes now examined Thomas's desk drawer, his fingers delicately sifting through letters. He paused over one envelope, sealed with the Grayford crest.
Lady Grayford, may I?
Of course, anything that may help.
Holmes opened the envelope. Inside lay a short letter containing only a single line, written in long flowing script.
Meet we at the place where the water swallows truth.
Beneath the line was no signature, only a peculiar mark resembling a loop intersecting a vertical slash. Ash, Shurue, like an Orloy.
Intriguing. A cipher of sorts. Or a personal symbol. Watson, what do you make of it?
It resembles an unfinished Celtic knot, perhaps?
Or a monogram meant to obscure identity. Lady Grayford, when did Thomas receive this?
2 days before his disappearance, I found the letter tucked into one of his sketchbooks afterward. I had hoped it might be meaningless.
On the contrary, it is exceedingly meaningful. A clandestine meeting by water, likely the river beneath Churchstone Bridge.
Holmes then approached the window. The manor grounds stretched far into the horizon, the river appearing as a glittering ribbon cutting through the moors.
Tell me, Lady Grayford, did your brother have any close acquaintances in the village? Any confidants he met with privately?
None that I know of. Thomas was a quiet soul, introspective. He found solace in walking.
And yet someone wished to meet him in secrecy. That demands we learn more about your brother's recent habits. Watson, make note. We must speak to the groundskeeper next.
Mr. Finch, a gaunt man with wiry arms and a face lined by decades of outdoor labor, led us along a gravel path toward the riverbank as boots crunched sharply against the stones, a rhythmic punctuation to his gruff remarks.
Master Thomas was troubled these weeks, that I'll admit. Walked more than usual. Sometimes returned close to midnight, soaked through from the fog.
And you never followed him? Never questioned his late walks?
Not my place, sir. And the lad wasn't doing harm. Besides, folks avoid the bridge after dark.
Because of the tales?
Call 'em tales if you like. I call 'em warnings. Heard things myself, sir. Low sounds under the arch, like whispering from stone.
Whispering from stone? What precisely did you hear?
Couldn't make out words. More like voices murmured through water, as if someone was speaking from the riverbed itself.
The idea chilled me more than I wished to admit, but Holmes remained unfazed.
Phenomena of acoustics most likely. Running water can distort sound with remarkable effect. But tell me, did Thomas ever mention meeting someone?
Once, just once, said he had an appointment near the bridge. Wouldn't say with who.
That aligns with the letter. Watson, I believe our next destination is self-evident.
The bridge.
Precisely. But we shall examine it in daylight before the more dangerous hour of dusk.
Churchstone Bridge emerged through the thinning veil of trees like a relic of another age, a grand A-cup arch of pale grey stone spanning a narrow but fast-moving river. Moss clung to its base, and cracks ran along its curve like veins in ancient bone, churned with the river beneath, churned with a ceaseless, almost hungry vigor.
A remarkable structure, centuries old. The craftsmanship predates modern masonry, likely Norman in origin.
Holmes knelt near the bank, studying the soil, the stones, the flow of water, and even the shadow cast by the arch.
The ground here is undisturbed. No signs of struggle. No evidence of someone slipping. Curious,
Could the river have swept a man away quickly?
possibly, but improbable. This river is narrow. A body would surface or be caught along the reeds. Yet none have been found. 4 disappearances, Watson, not one body. That is no accident.
Holmes then walked beneath the arch. The air felt cooler there, the echo of the river louder. A sense of foreboding settled upon me. Abbey!
Observe the underside of the stones. Scratches, faint but deliberate.
They look like markings made by a blade or chisel.
A code. Someone communicates here. These scratches are too precise to be natural erosion.
What do they signify?
I cannot yet say, but they match the symbol from the letter. Whoever created this cipher uses the bridge as a message post.
Holmes stood abruptly and turned toward the far end of the bridge, eyes sharp.
Someone else has been here recently. Very recently. Oh, Ever?
How can you tell?
The faint scent of tobacco, distinctively Turkish blend, and footprints, partially concealed by the damp. Our unknown visitor attempts subtlety but lacks discipline.
Holmes suddenly crouched, fingertips brushing against the stone wall.
Watson, look, threads caught on this edge. Navy wool, torn from a coat sleeve of finer make, the kind worn by educated men. We are no longer dealing with mere Ruru superstition.
You suspect a conspiracy.
I suspect intelligence, coordination, intent, and where these converge, danger is never distant.
As the sun dipped behind the moors, shadows lengthened across the bridge, stretching like fingers into the forest beyond. The main hour, the air grew heavier, colder, and a silence settled over the area that bordered on oppressive.
It is nearly time, Watson. If the pattern holds, dusk marks the hour when disappearances occur.
You mean to stay here? In the dark?
Naturally, mystery dwells in shadow. We must meet it on its own ground.
Imes stepped beneath the arch once more, studying the shifting shadows. I followed, though every rational instinct urged me to keep to the safer side of the riverbank. The opposing woods rustled faintly, as though stirred by an unseen presence.
Stay alert, Watson. Listen.
I listened, at first hearing nothing but the river, then a faint murmur, fat, a low rolling whisper carried on the current. My pulse quickened. Holmes, do you hear that?
Yes, and it is not the river.
The whisper grew louder, almost rhythmic. Then, footsteps, soft, deliberate, moving across the bridge above us.
Someone approaches. Remain still!
A figure appeared, silhouetted against the dying light, cloaked, tall, moving with the precision of a man accustomed to secrecy. Holmes tensed beside me.
Our shadowed architect returns.
The figure paused at the center of the bridge, glanced around, then reached into his coat. Holmes whispered sharply.
He's leaving something or retrieving something. Be prepared, Watson.
The figure kneeled, and suddenly the river's whisper crescendoed into a chilling, almost human moan. The cloaked man froze. Hello!
Voice low, eerie, not now, not tonight.
Before Holmes could act, the stranger bolted, vaulting over the far side of the bridge and disappearing into the trees with startling speed. Holmes surged forward.
After him.
We rushed across the bridge, but by the time we reached the far embankment, the figure was gone, swallowed whole by the encroaching darkness. Holmes halted, breathing lightly, eyes darting across the tree line.
He vanished deliberately. That man knew these woods, and he knew we were here.
Then, we are in danger?
On the contrary, Watson, we are finally on the right path.
The night swallowed Churchstone village with a thick sky, unyielding darkness as Holmes and I made our return to Grayford Manor. The encounter with the cloaked stranger at the bridge occupied every corner of my thoughts, repeating itself again and again like the refrain of some sinister melody. Holmes walked briskly, faster than usual, his eyes gleaming with that peculiar intensity that only surfaced when a riddle began to reveal its first threads of truth.
Watson, the stranger was not merely involved. He was waiting. He expected someone. Perhaps Thomas. Perhaps another of the vanished. But the moment he sensed our presence, he fled with alarming purpose.
And the sound, Holmes, those whispered voices beneath the arch. What manner of explanation could reason supply for such a thing?
Reason always supplies explanation, Watson. It is perception that falters. The voices were not supernatural, they were acoustic reflections. Yet the timing was deliberate. Someone wished to frighten those who wandered near the bridge.
You believe the phenomenon manufactured?
I believe everything manufactured until proven otherwise.
Grayford Manor rose before us like a silent sentinel. Lanterns flickered in the upper windows, and a faint wind rustled the hedges along the stone pathway. Lady Grayford awaited us anxiously at the door, her pale features illuminated by the trembling amber light of a candle.
Thank heavens you've returned. I have been pacing the hall for nearly an hour. Did you find anything at the bridge? Anything at all?
The situation grows more complex. Lady Grayford, we encountered a man lurking on the bridge, cloaked, evasive, and well acquainted with the terrain. His presence proves that disappearances are no accidents.
Amen. Then the stories of spirits and curses. Oh, yes!
Are convenient diversions, nothing more. Someone hides behind superstition like a mask.
Lady Grayford's hands trembled around the candle holder. Her expression was equal parts relief and renewed dread.
Then my brother, he might still be alive?
It is entirely possible. If he vanished without leaving a trace, that suggests intent, not misfortune.
Holmes spoke with steady certainty, but I could not share the same confidence. Too many shadows lingered in this mystery, too many voices, both real and imagined, whispering from beneath that cursed arch. Lady Grayford ushered us into a small study adjacent to the library. The fire crackled warmly, casting golden reflections across polished shelves filled with volumes of poetry, history, and ancestral records. The comfort of the room contrasted sharply with the tension that filled it.
I asked the staff to remain awake. They are prepared for any questions you may have.
Excellent. But before I interrogate them, I must inspect one more piece of Thomas's belongings, the journal he kept these past months.
Waste journal? I did not know he kept one.
Every man who sketches obsessively keeps a record, if not for posterity, then for clarity of mind. Where did he keep his most private items?
His bedroom, I suppose, in the top drawer of his bedside table.
Watson, accompany me.
The bedroom was tidier than I expected for a young man of troubled disposition. Oh, the bed was made, the dresser neatly arranged, and the curtains drawn tightly against the late-night gloom. Holmes moved through the space with practiced swift precision.
There, the drawer. Bring it here, Watson.
I opened the top drawer and found a neatly bound leather journal along with a few loose pages speckled with scribbled ink. Holmes took the journal with the reverence of a man handling evidence of paramount significance.
The binding is worn at the edges. He used this frequently. Let us see what thoughts occupied his mind.
Holmes flipped through the pages, his eyes moving rapidly, absorbing every word. His brow furrowed deeper the further he read.
Watson, listen to this entry dated 1 week before the disappearance. I cannot ignore the figure any longer. It waits beneath the arch as though carved from the shadows themselves, and every time I draw nearer, the river seems to whisper warnings I cannot fully understand.
Another entry followed, written with even more frantic handwriting.
I received another message today. The symbol again, a loop intersected by a vertical line. Whoever leaves these wants me to come alone. I fear it is both a summons and a threat.
Holmes then turned to the finer written page, its contents just a single cryptic sentence.
Tonight, I meet the one who knows the truth. You.
Holmes closed the journal slowly, his face growing darker with contemplation.
He was lured. Systematically. The symbols were bait, the messages calculated. Thomas was investigating something far older than a simple local rumor.
But what truth did he seek? What did he intend to uncover beneath that bridge?
That is the beating heart of our entire mystery.
Lady Grayford had summoned 3 individuals: Mr. Finch, the groundskeeper, Mrs. Arbelay, even Abelmire the Scost, Donnelly the housekeeper, and a young footman named Albert, who had been with the family for barely a year. Holmes stood before them like a maestro ready to conduct.
Let us begin with the most methodical approach. Each of you will recount what you know of Thomas Grayford's final evening.
I told you earlier, sir, Master Thomas left the manor after supper, said he needed some air.
And did he mention meeting anyone?
No, sir, but he did look unsettled, as if something weighed on his mind.
He hardly touched his food that night, and when I asked if he was feeling poorly, he merely said he had business to resolve.
Business? Curious choice of word.
Holmes turned his attention to the footman, a young man with wide, fearful eyes.
And you, Albert?
I saw him speaking with someone earlier that week, sir.
Now we approach revelation. Who was this someone?
I'm not certain, sir. I only caught a glimpse as I was carrying firewood. The man wore a long dark coat and a hat pulled low. They stood at the far end of the driveway.
Did Master Thomas seem familiar with the man?
Yes, sir. He didn't look frightened, more resigned, like he knew the man but didn't wish to see him.
Holmes paced, hands clasped behind his back.
Lady Grayford, do you recognize this description?
No, it sounds like no one I have met.
Then Thomas kept secrets. And secrets, Watson, are often the final footprints left behind by missing souls.
With nothing further to glean from the stuff, Holmes dismissed them, though I noticed Albert lingered with a face pale as moonlit linen. It was nearing midnight when Holmes insisted we return to the bridge. Holmes, must we truly go back at such an hour? The fog is rising again, thicker than before.
Precisely why we must. We, whoever uses the bridge as a meeting ground or message post, will depend upon the concealment provided by night.
Churchstone Bridge loomed ahead like a petrified ghost. The lantern Holmes carried pierced only a narrow portion of the fog, leaving the rest to swell and curl like spectral arms reaching across the landscape.
Watson, observe the far bank. The reeds move unnaturally. Someone has been here recently.
The whispering beneath the arch began again, not faint as before, but stronger, like overlapping voices carried from beneath the riverbed. Holmes, listen, it grows clearer.
Stay steady. Do not let imagination distort reality.
But the whispers sharpened. They rose, merged, and coalesced into something unmistakably human, yet chillingly distorted.
Soft, eerie. Come, the truth waits below.
I froze. Holmes snarled under his breath.
Someone is using a conduit beneath the bridge, an acoustic chamber. They are deliberately projecting sound.
But before Holmes could investigate further, a splash erupted from beneath the arch. Something, or someone had moved swiftly through the water. Holmes raised the lantern toward the river. You boy, you bird!
There, do you see it? A doorway. Watson, look at that stone slab beneath the arch.
And indeed, the reflection revealed a partially concealed opening near the waterline, an entryway hidden by moss and illusion.
Watson, we have found the true heart of this mystery.
But before we could approach, footsteps thundered across the bridge above us, shouting, "Leave this place!" Holmes whirled around, but the figure was already fleeing into the forest.
Enough shadows. Watson, we pursue him at once.
And so we gave chase into the night. The wind whistled mournfully as Holmes and I approached the ancient Churchstone Abbey ruins, guided only by a dim lantern and the urgency of our investigation. Midnight pressed above us like a suffocating shroud, and the moon's pale disk cast long skeletal shadows across the broken stonework. Holmes strolled ahead with quick, purposeful steps, his coat fluttering behind him like a dark banner. I followed closely, holding the lantern aloft to keep the encroaching gloom at bay. "Holmes," I called to the rustling wind, "the message from Mrs. Jummers. Harrow said that a cloaked figure has been visiting the ruins at night. Could this be the same individual who crossed the Churchstone Bridge and fled into the marshes?"
My dear Watson, said Holmes, glancing back at me with a half-smile, I dare say it is the same shadowy gentleman. Men who commit grave misdeeds often seek out places of darkness and concealment. These ruins provide both. And he paused and pointed at the ground. Number she, hour. Note the fresh impressions in the soil. Someone passed here no more than half an hour ago.
Good heavens, Holmes, you discern that simply from the firmness of the prints?
From that. Yes. Also from the moisture on the edges of the indentations and the disturbance of moss clusters. But come, linger not. Every moment we spend admiring my deductions is a moment our quarry uses to escape me.
We moved deeper into the ruins, the stones rising around us like the ribs of some long dead beast. I could not shake the uneasy feeling that someone lurked behind those broken archways, listening to each crackle of gravel beneath our boots. Holmes, I whispered, lowering my voice despite myself. I cannot help but feel that we are being watched.
Watson, we are not being watched, he replied calmly, his tone sharpened with analytical certainty. We are being waited for.
That distinction does not comfort me.
Nor is it meant to.
We reached what had once been the Abbey's great hall. A single stone column remained at its center, clacked and leaning like a weary sentinel. Holmes raised his hand suddenly, commanding silence. I halted at once.
Remain perfectly still, Holmes said quietly. There is someone breathing behind the far wall. Soft, controlled, the breath of a man who believes he is hidden.
Are you certain? I whispered.
Watson, the world is an orchestra of subtle sounds. One need only train oneself to discern the instrument.
Holmes stepped forward, his boots barely whispering against the ground. The lantern light cast trembling shadows across the ruins. Suddenly, a sound cut sharply through the silence. A scrape of stone. Holmes lunged toward the far wall.
Stop there. You cannot flee into the marshes forever.
I scrambled after him as a figure cloaked in dark wool darted from behind the wall and sprinted toward the broken archway leading outside. Too! I raised the lantern and caught a brief glimpse of his face, pale, hollow-cheeked, and wide-eyed with fear. Holmes, he's heading for the stone stairway.
Then cut him off on the right, Watson, quickly. The ground on the left is treacherous.
I obeyed without hesitation and dashed toward the crumbling steps. The figure reached the base of the stairway just as Holmes intercepted him. With surprising agility, the stranger vaulted over a collapsed chunk of masonry and merely disappeared around a corner. He's escaping, I cried.
Not quite.
Holmes seized a fallen branch and flung it with uncanny accuracy. It struck the fleeing man's ankle, sending him sprawling across the uneven stone floor. I rushed forward and pinned the man's arms as Holmes arrived beside me.
Let me go, the stranger cried, struggling beneath my grip. I'd done nothing to you, nothing.
Indeed, said Holmes coolly. You have done nothing to us. But you have done a great deal to the late Reverend Halbert, and possibly to the safety of this community.
The man froze, his breath coming in short gasps.
I don't know what you mean. I never harmed the Reverend.
You may attempt subterfuge with lesser minds, sir, but please spare Dr. Copperroad. Watson, the insult of assuming he would believe such a transparent falsehood.
Holmes, I murmured, we do not yet know his identity.
On the contrary, Watson, his identity is written in the details. Observe the calluses on his right palm consistent with regular rope handling, the faint chalk residue on his cuffs, and the distinct scent of marsh reeds in his coat. There is only one man in Churchstone whose life involves rope, chalk, and the marsh in equal measure.
The bellkeeper, Samuel Pierce.
No, the man shrieked. You can't prove I wasn't. I never.
You were seen crossing Churchstone Bridge the night Reverend Halbert vanished. You were also witnessed entering these ruins at irregular hours. And now that we have found you lurking here yet again, I dare say the pattern is no longer deniable. Oh,
you do not understand. Please, I can explain.
The man collapsed into trembling sobs. I loosened my hold slightly and glanced at Holmes, who studied Pierce with that piercing gaze that seemed to strip away flesh and bone to reveal the naked truth beneath.
Then explain, Mr. Pierce. But understand this. The truth has a way of presenting itself whether or not you choose to share it.
I did not kill the Reverend, Pierce whispered, but I know what really happened.
Holmes crouched beside him.
Go on.
Reverend Halbert came to me 3 weeks ago, Pierce said, wiping his face with a shaking hand. He asked if I still remembered the passages beneath the ruins, the ancient crypts connected to the old bridge tunnels. He said he had discovered something dangerous.
What sort of danger?
Pierce swallowed hard. Ah! He believed someone had been using the crypts for smuggling.
Holmes's eyes gleamed. Smuggling what precisely?
Forged treasury bonds, boxes of them, gongo, enough to ruin dozens of families if they were put into circulation.
Good Lord.
The Reverend wanted proof before confronting anyone. He asked me to lead him down into the tunnels. But when we reached the stone chamber beneath the bridge, we heard footsteps. More than one pair. Someone was already there.
And who were they?
I never saw clearly. They moved fast, too fast. One stopped the Reverend before he could cry out. I fled up the passage like a coward.
And you returned only at night?
Yes, I feared they would come for me if they knew I'd watched them. I came here at night to see if they left evidence behind. Anything that might clear my conscience.
And have they returned?
Yes. Twice this past week, I heard voices, male voices, discussing where to move the boxes. I dared not get closer.
I glanced at Holmes, whose face grew darker with each revelation.
Watson, he said quietly, this case grows beyond the simple disappearance of a clergyman. We are dealing with a ring of professional forgers, men who would not hesitate to kill again.
What must we do now?
We must descend into the crypts beneath this ruin, and we must do it quickly, before they return, to move their contraband and destroy whatever evidence remains.
You cannot go down there. They will be armed.
Then I suppose it is fortunate, Mr. Pierce, that I rarely embark upon dangerous undertakings without Dr. Watson beside me.
Holmes, I appreciate the sentiment, but...
No time for modesty, Watson. Fetch the lantern. The entrance lies beneath the central column.
And so, with the ruins shivering around us in the cold night wind, Holmes prepared to lead us downward, toward the hidden crypts beneath Churchstone Bridge, where danger and truth awaited in equal measure. The lantern flickered nervously in my grasp as Holmes led us toward the central column of the ruin. But, Abbey, Wind howled through broken archways, like the sighing of ancient spirits. Holmes crouched beside the cracked stone pillar, brushing aside dust and moss with the precision of a surgeon revealing an incision.
Watson, bring the lantern closer, Holmes instructed, tapping the base of the column. Note the faint seam running across this slab. It is not the natural wear of centuries, but the deliberate handiwork of human design.
Matt, I knelt beside him, raising the lantern until the golden light revealed a narrow rectangular outline in the floor.
Precisely, he murmured. This is a concealed hatch, likely older than the Abbey walls themselves. It predates the Reformation.
How do you propose we open it, Holmes?
With the same method the builders employed. Leverage, Watson. Hand me that iron rod near the fallen arch.
As I retrieved the bar, Pierce lingered behind us, and his suffusions, wringing his hands like a man standing before the gallows.
You must understand, those tunnels were sealed for a reason. Terrible things happened there centuries ago, Dr. Watson. Terrible things.
Superstitions, Holmes said curtly, sliding the rod into the seam. Fear is the most ancient smuggler's ally.
With a grunt of effort, Holmes pried upward. The stone slab lifted just enough for me to slip my fingers beneath its edge. Together we heaved it aside, revealing a yawning black opening and a stairway plunging into the earth. Holmes, that stench.
The smell of stagnant air, sealed for centuries, mingled with the odor of modern trespassers. Someone has been down here recently, Watson. Note the scratches along the stone lip. Fesh! Someone opened this from below.
Then they may still be inside.
Precisely why we must descend with utmost caution.
Holmes motioned for Pierce to remain at the surface. Aze! Hi-wo! If we do not return within an hour, he told him, seek Inspector Holding and give him the note I leave here. And with that, Holmes tucked a small folded slip onto a dry patch of stone. My heart pounded as we descended the narrow steps. The lantern's weak glow barely pushed back the darkness pressing from every side. The walls seemed to close in like the throat of some ancient beast swallowing us whole. Holmes, I whispered, are you certain this is wise?
Wise? Naturally not. But necessary? Unquestionably.
At the bottom of the steps, the passage widened into a vaulted corridor braced with ribs of ancient masonry. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling, echoing like phantom footsteps.
Observe the footprints in the silt, Holmes said softly. 3 individuals passed here recently. 2 heavier, 1 lighter, and, here! A scrap of clerical cloth.
From Reverend Halbert's coat?
Without question. And look, torn fibers along the edge. He resisted his assailant. Wah!
Holmes rose and gestured forward. Stay close, Watson. The corridor ended at a heavy oaken door, reinforced with iron bands. Holmes ran his fingers along its edges.
A modern lock, installed no more than 5 years ago. Criminals always think themselves clever when adding new devices to old structures. They forget that mismatched craftsmanship betrays them.
He withdrew 2 slender metal instruments from his coat and within seconds clicked the lock yielded.
After you, Watson.
Inside was a broad stone chamber, lit by 3 oil lamps. Grates lay stacked along the walls, stamped with forged treasury insignias. At the center of the room, shackled to a column, was a man with silver hair and a torn clerical collar. Holmes, it's him.
Who? Who goes there? Croaked Reverend Halbert, his voice thin and wavering. Is it morning? Have they returned?
I rushed to his side. Reverend Halbert, it is Dr. Watson. Holmes and I have come to rescue you.
Bless the Lord, he whispered. I feared I would perish in this tomb.
Holmes inspected the shackles. Watson, assist me.
As we freed the Reverend, Holmes kept a sharp eye on the surrounding shadows.
Reverend, how many men are part of this operation?
4 at least, including the leader, a man who calls himself Warren. They said they were nearly ready to transport the last batch of forged bonds.
Are they armed?
Heavily.
Then our time is short. Watson, support him. We must depart immediately.
We guided the weakened Reverend toward the door, but before we reached it, a harsh voice boomed from the arch behind us.
Going somewhere, Mr. Holmes?
3 men stepped into the chamber. The leader, broad-shouldered, dark-bearded, eyes cold as frozen steel, aimed a revolver at us. His henchmen flanked him with lanterns and cudgels.
I must commend you, Holmes. Very few have ever found this place. Fewer still have left it alive.
Holmes straightened calmly, his hands folded behind his back. Mr. Warren, your theatrics are unnecessary. Your operation is exposed. The forged bonds will never see daylight.
On the contrary, they will fund a new life on the continent. But first, I must dispose of a detective and his loyal doctor.
I stepped in front of Reverend Halbert instinctively. Holmes, if he fires...
He won't. Not yet. Holmes's eyes glimmered. For one, he fears the gunshot echoing through the crypts and alerting anyone above ground. And 2, he prefers intimidation before violence.
You presume too much, detective.
On the contrary, I presume precisely enough.
A tense silence fell. Then Holmes whispered,
Watson, lantern.
I didn't question. I swung the lantern in a broad arc and hurled it toward Baron's feet. It shattered, oil spilling across the stone and bursting into flame as it met the lamp's scattered sparks.
Damn you, Baron roared, recoiling from the sudden blaze.
In that instant, Holmes sprang forward. He kicked Warren's wrist, sending the revolver skidding across the floor, then grappled the man with startling ferocity. I shoved the Reverend behind a crate and rushed to restrain the nearest henchman. The chamber erupted into chaos, firelight dancing across ancient walls as fists collided with bone. One of the thugs swung a cudgel at my head. I ducked and tackled him, the impact jarring my shoulders.
Watson, to your left.
I roared just as another man lunged. Holmes, in a flurry of precise movements, struck Warren's throat and forced him to his knees.
You can't stop us.
I believe I just did, Holmes replied, breathless but unwavering.
With all three criminals subdued, the chamber fell into an eerie calm, broken only by crackling flames and Reverend Halbert's trembling breaths.
Watson, fetch water from the corridor to extinguish this before it consumes the crates. Please ensure Varond remains conscious. I have questions. I have questions.
20 minutes later, Inspector Hulding and his constables arrived, swimming, led by the anxious Sam Pierce. The criminals were shackled, the Reverend carried to safety, and the crates catalogued.
Holmes, this is the largest forgery ring uncovered in my service. Scotland Yard owes you a profound debt.
Nonsense, Inspector. Deduction and persistence did the work. I merely followed the evidence where it led.
As we stepped from the ruins into the first pale rays of dawn, I breathed deeply, grateful for the fresh air after the claustrophobic crypts. Holmes, I said quietly, once again you have unraveled a web of mystery with astonishing clarity.
Elementary, Watson, he replied with that familiar twinkle in his eye. Criminals may hide in shadows, but truth has a habit of illuminating even the darkest recesses.
And so ended the curious affair of the Churchstone Bridge, an adventure of concealed crypts, wights, ancient ruins, and dangers concealed beneath the tranquil veneer of the English countryside. As always, Holmes walked ahead with swift, confident steps while I followed, ever learning, ever observing, and ever grateful for the privilege of witnessing the greatest detective in the world at work. Little did I know, our next case was already waiting on Baker Street.